It's bourbonblog.com live, one of my favorite whiskeys in the country. I've known these guys since the early days when they first started Stranahan's. I've had distiller Owen Martin joining me live from the distillery. How's everything going there at Stranahan's, Owen?
Oh, staying busy, Tom. How are you doing?
Good, good. And so lots to talk about here. First of all, we are going to taste this distillery-only Caribbean cask. I'm so excited to try it. And as I was telling you, I found my Stave Thief Glencairn. I think this says 2017. That's when I was there with you for Stave Thief.
Okay.
Or sorry, Cask. Sorry,
Cask Thief. Yes, that would have been the second one. Yeah.
Cask Thief is this weekend, and tell us. I know it's sold out, but again, for those people that may be watching this that are going to Cask Thief,
Sure.
like myself that have been before, what is Cask Thief? What's coming up this week?
Yeah, so it's almost the counterpoint to our big December release we do every year. So we have a big Snowflake blend, which is a blend of all these specialty casks. Cask Thief is pretty much the opposite, where we just highlight 6 or 7 individual barrels, cask finishes, R&D, different production tweaks that make them kind of unique and rare. Obviously just sort of one-offs or two-offs within the distillery. So we have a big party at the distillery. We do kind of like a pig roast over barrel staves, whiskey ice cream collaborations, and then obviously the main course is 7 cask strength whiskeys, Thief straight out of the barrel and into everyone's glasses. So it's just a big party. We love doing it. It sells out super fast every year, and we're definitely looking forward to it.
It's such a special experience because there are some wonderful experiences that many American distilleries put on, but this one is so unique because you're really going not just into casks of it's always nice to taste Stranahan's right from the cask, no matter what it is. But
Sure.
You're going to these one-offs, these interesting barrels, and you're having a party. You're bringing other people from the community, like you said, the ice cream, chocolates, whatever it might be. The
Right.
7 casks. Tell us about a couple of your favorites that are going to be happening on Saturday.
Okay. Well, this kind of blurs the line of being cask strength, and it's I say that because we wanted to do our first ever bottle and bond release.
Yes.
So we're going to release a 9-year-old bottle and bond. So I actually dumped a couple barrels, cut them to 100 proof, obviously, to meet the stipulations of bottle and bond. And then I recasked one of those at 100 proof. So
you recasted.
Right. So, we're just having fun with it. So whereas the other ones are all truly cask strength, that one is kind of blurring the lines. But, as a company that's really kind of followed the single malt mantra and gone in that sort of direction with our whole ethos, it was fun to kind of bring it back to, the staple of American whiskey regulations being the Bottle and Bond Act. And, we wanted to go in big. We weren't going to do a 4-year-old. We wanted to go up to 9. But as like a counterpoint to that, like I said, a lot of cask finishing. So we have a Mezcal Cask, which really highlights the kind of herbal qualities of the malt.
Yeah.
It's not overtly smoky, but it's definitely like peppery. I've been calling it almost like sooty. So, we have that. We have an Imperial Stout barrel from a local brewery that really kind of amplified the roasty notes that we find in our specialty malts. So all of these, and it'll kind of tie into us talking about this rum cask, but in my mind, all these different cask finishes sort of highlight different aspects of how, how many different flavor profiles that malt and can kind of hit, but be it roasty or honey. And on that note, we actually have a honey cask. We try to do one like kind of more dessert forward one. Last year we did a maple barrel.
Right.
We actually had our honey barrel that was a Stranahan's barrel. We was sent to a local honey company. They filled with honey. They dumped it. They sent it back to us. So it's been full of Stranahan's for 2 years since then, and it is just super rich. Almost like a high. It's a liqueur, but it's also 57% alcohol. So you can get into trouble with that one. But we try, like I said, to hit all these different profiles and make sure that all these barrels are super wide ranged in their flavor profile and everything.
It is one of the, it really is one of the, I'm trying to think of just the right words to say. It's like a paradise of limited editions that are so limited. They're really only available that night out of the cask at the distillery. Yep. And you're tasting it right from the barrel. And then the people that the attendees have the chance to buy a small bottle as they leave.
Yeah, so
And there are only like enough of those. There's not too many of those, right?
No, a couple hundred, but yeah, we do 375 ml bottles out of each one, and then we have a certain amount available for each session. So those, we usually at least have one or two of them sell out. I think the maple one went pretty fast last year just because it was so rich and desserty. I'm expecting the bottle and bond to sell out pretty quick this year. And we'll see. We did a blend of 3 different types of port casks. So we've had, ruby, tawny, and white port, weirdly enough. We try to do, kind of fun miniature blends on some of them. Since we have been doing this for 5 years, we've kind of ticked most of the boxes as far as a sherry barrel, a port barrel, Madeira barrel. So now we're getting to think a little bit further outside the box with these releases, but it's been fun to develop them.
I think it's just so exciting, and of course it transitions so nicely into what we're tasting today, because as you were mentioning, no matter what you're finishing, and you really think through, what are we going to finish Stranahan's in? I've had the cognac casks, I've had sherry, I've had a variety of them over the last decade and a half or so with you all. But this one is, if you're not a cask thief, or even if you are, this one is a distillery release only.
Yep.
It is the Caribbean Rum Cask. I've always said, I think that, your whiskey, beautiful by itself, also becomes this wonderful canvas for other things that just, whether it's making a cocktail out of it, whether it's just adding a little something or putting it into a finishing barrel. This really is beautiful. There's kind of, this is like as I call it, a roller coaster of flavors. It starts one place, it goes another. Tell us about this barrel. What did you how long did it take? About the rum barrel? Just the overview. So
great segues. We did one of the rum barrels that went into this, or from the candidates, was a single barrel Cask Thief release last year. 2 years ago. So Cask Thief can also kind of be this way that we sort of get community feedback and then decide what to scale up, in the behind the scenes world of our whiskey distillery. So in this one, we actually blended a couple different sort of ages and finishing times in rum, primarily Barbados rum barrels. So we kind of had a younger component I was working with, and then I wanted to round that out with an older component that hadn't spent as much time in the rum. And that way we kind of had a multifaceted thing that, kind of had a more of an oak profile to it, but also had that, youthful, bright rum character of a slightly younger whiskey. When you refer to it as a roller coaster, I think that's probably the multiple components we let marry together.
Different components. And again, it was 2 different, it's a blend of the older rum and then the younger.
Yep. So it was, 2 components. One was 5 years total time in oak, with almost 3 of that being in rum casks. So definitely malt forward, young, a little more fiery. And then we rounded that out with some 8-year-old Stranahan. So definitely some of our older stock that spent about 6 months in rum. So a lot lighter rum character there, more of an accent, as opposed to the younger part, which is much punchier. And I think we're able to put those parts together in a way that highlights the rum, but also gives it, a little bit more structure to it in terms of like tannins and some of the sweeter oak components like honey and toffee.
You get those honey. Now, when you say puncher, are you talking like more of a tropical punch, or the way it punches you? Which way?
How about both?
Both. It's both. It's both. That's what I thought you might mean. Yeah. But it has a little it has a tropical note. It has this, especially the finish of it, just really goes on.
Yeah, and I think it was fun. I almost wish we released this earlier. It feels very much like a summer whiskey to me, which I don't know if that really means anything, but I think we should have launched it in like June, so we could have done a bunch of summer tiki cocktails with it. But even so, I mean, we launched it. Oh man, yeah, maybe a little over a month ago, and we're almost sold out of the first batch. I'm working on luckily I had enough cask put down that I can pretty much put a second one together following roughly the same blend. But we're already working on that because we'll be having to bottle that within a month or so.
And there's 8-year-old in this. There's 5 and 8-year-old. Yes. So this is some older stock of Stranahan.
Yeah. I mean, for the exclusives, we wanted to make sure that, for our fans that have revisited us over and over and over again and support all our releases, or for people that are, coming from out of state and making it a point to stop here. wanted to make sure we're rewarding them with some well-aged, well-integrated whiskey.
Of course.
And I think, you and I briefly talked about the Bushmill's release. So this is the second in our exclusive release.
Okay.
The first one was a Bushmill's single malt cask finish. And so that one almost spent even time in our standard new char barrel, and then almost spent 4 more years in the Bushmill's barrel. So these are all meant to be, kind of stepped up into that age range, 7, 8, 9 years. As I said, this one has some younger components in it as well, but we want to have the bulk of it be well-aged, well-matured whiskey. And then with this and the Bushmill's cask, the idea here was to kind of have a lighter finish. So, so often we've done port barrels, sherry barrels, Snowflake's always all over the place with its cask finishes. And that's great. Like those are kind of the point of those finishes, is to be really big and bold. For both the Bushmills and this rum one, we wanted the malt to still be really in the driver's seat and just kind of accented nicely with a light finish. So the Bushmills really kind of doubled down on that malt character. And I say that this rum cask definitely kind of amplifies the ester profile that, we develop through our brewer's yeast fermentation and through our kind of extended maturation, both in new and used barrels. So I think it does a really good job of both integrating that malt and then whatever kind of light component we want to accent that.
Yeah, lighter notes off the beginning. It really enters nice. You have lots of hints of, your the DNA of Stranahan. The malts there. There's some undertones, tropical sweetness, and then at the end, it just really blossoms into a much larger rum flavor. I mean, it gets big at the end. How do you do that as a blender, as a distiller? How do you find a way to punch that end of it? What are you doing, and how many different are you going through as far as the trial and error of the blends?
Well, this is sort of my impromptu blending station, which is funny, but it's all milliliter by milliliter. So, I'll measure. I'll first kind of look at what my inventory of barrels looks like. In this case, like I knew I had those younger barrels. I knew I had the older barrels. And so this one was a fairly simple one, a 2-component blend. Snowflake can get to be up to like 7 or 8. So this one, I kind of just sort of mixed and matched. I wanted it to have like I said, a mature oak profile, but basically I wanted to put enough of the 5-year-old in that the rum, like you said, really pops. And so I was just playing with ratios. And when I have X amount of barrels, I'll pretty much measure out like 50 milliliters, mocking up 50 gallons. Right. And so it's pretty easy to kind of find your total inventory and then scale that down to a lab blend. When you're happy with that, then you go dump the barrels accordingly.
I'm really impressed. Every time another limited edition comes out, whether it's a distillery exclusive or a Snowflake from you all, I'm always like, okay, now this is my favorite, and they're they always just impress. I mean, it's a testament to the whiskey that you all make, to what you've always done right, to you, Owen. And I think just to your creativity, and just you're always going to just knock it out of the park with these releases. And there's again a little bit left at the distillery. If you want this, right, there's just a little bit left.
There's a little bit left, and as I said, we're already working on. Right now, it's kind of we're held up on bottling materials just because supply chain issues are so crazy throughout this industry, and I guess pretty much everything right now. So. The liquid's ready. It's not getting any worse. It's still hanging out in the barrels, and I think we're going to try to have a whole other release of this on the shelf through the holiday period. Is the goal?
Oh, nice. Yeah. There just might be another release coming. Probably will be.
In general, we're going to try to do about 2 of these a year. So not in terms of releases, but two different finishes, right? So we had the Bushmills to start this year, did the rum, halfway through or a little over halfway through the year. So next year I'm already, I've had the barrels set down. In general, I want to give things at least a year finishing time. As I said, with this older component, 6 months kind of shaded it nicely enough. But I have some tequila barrels that have been in the tequila cask for 2 years now.
Ooh.
I have some rye barrels that have been in for over a year now. So I'm kind of eyeing those up as potential ones for next year. Obviously, we've always kind of leaned into red wine with our special releases. Yeah. So that's always an option. And, Yeah, so I kind of am already trying to formulate out a year or 2 years in the future, because obviously I don't want to short any of the finishing time. Really, one of my goals is older whiskey, and then the second goal is longer finishing time, because I really want those flavors to really fully integrate with each other, which I think we did really well with this one.
Yes.
I think the malt and the light rum notes, fruity ester notes really kind of blend well together.
It's beautiful. So some tequila maybe in the future, some rye, maybe some other rums. Are you giving any hints on what this year's Snowflake will be in?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I can, because I've already hinted at what last year's Snowflake was going to be, and then obviously the event unfortunately wasn't able to happen. But kind of like I was just saying a second ago, like basically what I did with Snowflake was I picked all these crazy different casks, found a great blend of them together. I dumped those barrels, blended them, and like really circulated the tank heavily, and then recast it back into the barrels they came from. And I wanted to give it that, little extra marrying time before I bottled the release. Well, the release never came about. So this blend, this marriage has now been in barrel since almost about a year now.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, it should be really fun. Essentially like blended twice over, I guess, if that makes sense.
And again, it's the one with the...
It has, so a couple components I'll hint at. It leans very heavily into brandy, specifically apple brandy. So two different types of apple brandy make up the bulk of the blend. I won't tell you every component yet, but Calvados from France, and then some Applejack from New York. So both those, with the French oak from the Calvados, we got more of like a richer, spicier kind of apple pie sort of flavor to it. And then the Applejack was just super bright, super juicy. And so with those two, we were able to hit this kind of more complex apple profile, which really, a lot of times here we get orchard fruits with Stranahans. I think malt is such a, interesting primary ingredient to use, because it does have all this varied flavor components to it. Think about like your Highlands scotches that you always get those sort of pears and apples with.
Right. So,
kind of just the same idea as the rum cask and the Bushmills cask we were talking about, is really about just accenting some flavors that were already there. So I'm super happy with it. I haven't redumped the casks yet, because we're still kind of waiting to see what where we're at, what we're able to do. Obviously everything changes week to week everywhere. So the best I can do is keep monitoring the whiskey and try to make it the best thing I possibly can.
So we're going to have an apple pie, very autumnal / holiday theme for the holiday, because it always comes out in December. It's going to be a perfect flavor for that time of year. That's
and so I mean, like in general, Snowflake's always been this very dessert oriented, like fireside sipper, right? And so we've almost always leaned into fortified wine casks and other things of that nature. So I wanted to, with this past year's blend that I put together, the idea was I wanted it to still have a very much dessert forward profile, but I wanted it to kind of go more into the bright dessert, and apple brandy was a perfect vessel to do that. So, you mentioned DNA earlier, and I'm always thinking about that with every release we do. And so I'm trying to keep the DNA of Snowflake together while putting my own fun spin on each year. So this one I would call the bright fruits, as opposed to more of the dark kind of stone fruits, where we more so are known for with Snowflake releases.
Right. The bright fruits. I love it, Owen. You're doing great work. I can't wait to try that as well. And then so many things coming. Of course, we have the original. You also have, which I always love, the Blue Peak, which was released.
Yep.
That was about a year ago or so, the Blue Peak?
Just about, a year and a month, I think. So,
yep.
So that kind of was more of a broader view. Like, obviously, I'm very involved with our special releases, and that's kind of my passion projects. But Blue Peak was sort of a revamp of our entire lineup, starting with that release. So, that's a $42 suggested retail price of a 4 to 5 year old Solera finished whiskey, which we think is fantastic value for the quality of whiskey. And also, with that price point, maybe someone who hasn't had Stranahans in a long time, or someone who's never heard of an American single malt. Right. Basically, Blue Peak's idea was to open the door, whether the price point, the liquid, I think it all kind of comes together in a way that, is super easy to pick up off the liquor store shelf. And then that kind of feeds into our continued revamp. So starting in January of this year, we kept the kind of blend idea behind the original, right? So that had been a 2 to 5 year old whiskey for the entirety of our history almost. And so we kind of kept that idea of 4 different ages to hit different profiles. And obviously, as I've said, I'm trying to move into older liquid because I think we have a lot of really cool, mature liquid to showcase. So as of this January, it was a 4, 5, 6, and 7 year old blend. And, not just small components of each of the old ones either. Like it's almost half of all the older liquid.
Wow.
Because, again, we want to differentiate that from Blue Peak. Blue Peak's kind of more the malt forward, almost, I'd say Scotch drinkers are probably going to like it better. And then that moves us into the more mature profile of the older Yellow Label original, which stayed at the same price point, but just was, we offered more mature liquid.
A little more age. You said it's 4, 5, 6 for the yellow?
4, 5, 6, and 7.
And 7 for the yellow. Wow.
Yeah. Beautiful. So then that 4-year-old kind of keeps that same DNA, the same malt forward, lighter, brighter fruit characters. And then those older components each bring kind of more of the depth, maturity, oak profile, obviously, since they're all new charred barrels. But yeah, caramels, toffees, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And so, we're really proud of where we've kind of honed that one into. And then, the revamp continues. So, keep an eye out for our Black Label relaunch, which should be, can't say anything too concrete, but it'll be coming. And so that Black Label and Sherry. And so, this is, in addition to all the special releases we're doing, it's just a super exciting time to be here.
There's so many good offerings. Yeah. So right now you're, and again, I didn't see it on the website. The Black Label it's maybe some out there, but right now it's something that is sort of in a transitional relaunch phase.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes, exactly.
So you'll be seeing. So I take it that whereas Black used to be, what was it? 4? What was the age on the Black? What did it used to be?
Yeah, 4-year-old.
4-year-old. It's potentially, without saying everything, it's going to be a little older than that.
It's going to be a little older. I think I can say that much. Yeah.
Going to be a little older. We'll probably see that sometime next year launch.
Somewhere in there.
Somewhere in there. Of course, we always love the sherry cask finish.
Yep.
About how long is that in a sherry cask?
So right now we're at I think about 2 years.
2 years. It's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. So that one has a ton, like us talking about it earlier, that one has a ton of depth to it. Really accents the kind of nutty, richer notes that our malt already has. Definitely some of the darkest, most flavorful liquid that we have.
Such a nice sipper. So I always love it with a cigar. It's so good with a good cigar. The sherry cask is beautiful. We're just going through all of them, and for those Stranahan fans watching here, the Strata fans, as we say, we're just going through all these because there's so much coming and so much already there. And then in about a month is when the Mountain Angel 10-year comes out.
Yeah, so that was our first ever proper age stated release, which was about a year ago, a little bit longer than that. And so right now I'm literally just counting down the days for my barrels that I've been kind of babysitting and monitoring. So they actually turned 10 years old in 3 days, and so I'll start looking at them then. There's not a ton of them, so again, kind of like this Caribbean rum blend. It shouldn't be too hard to figure out, I don't think. So another fairly small release this year, and in the next few years we'll scale that up, and it's more accessible for everyone, and can hopefully, a fan of ours that really wants to try a 10-year-old can waltz over to the liquor store and find a bottle. So so that is 10 years in the new charred barrel. That's about as heavy a oak profile as we've ever hit. I think it's surprising to me how much malt character is still in there. And obviously that's kind of my job, is to make sure that we don't ever lose that. But this definitely skews kind of more into the American whiskey category of things because of how prominent that oak is.
I had some last year with y'all, and it was just really something so special. I mean, of course, they're all, whether it's blue, the original, no matter what, they're all so special. But having it at such an older age really shows you just what that whiskey can do and how long you've been at it. I mean, you all were really you were breaking into new ground years and years ago when you started this. And I love everything you've grown and in so many more markets.
Yeah.
And what are you most excited about as older whiskey comes out yourself from you?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So I think 10 years is a really nice, solid oak profile. But, we spend all this time using malt, using our specialty malt, using our brewer's yeast, developing all this flavor profile that really every single one of my releases, I'm trying to make sure that flavor is still at its core. And so I think, we've done the 10-year now. So we're looking at what higher age statements might be. And that's something I've devoted a lot of time to over the last year or so. And so I think we're looking at maybe bringing some larger format barrels into play, some finishing casks into play. At the TTB, I think, what was it, a year and a half ago, kind of amperations finally to be in line with the rest of the world. So it used to be the only age statement you could put on an American whiskey was the time it spent in the initial barrel. And they finally changed that to be, like I said, more in line with Scotland and whatnot. So your finishing time can count towards your age statement, which that was music to my ears. That's all I want to hear.
Of course, making
sure I can hit the, your profiles that I want to. So, I'm playing around with, hey, what does 7 years in new char and 7 years in some other format taste like? Or like, again, lighter finishes, because when we're looking at spending a lot of time in that finishing cask, I don't necessarily want to throw the biggest, strongest flavored barrel at it. So a lot of second fill stuff I'm playing with right now, or I guess third fill, counting the fill into the new char. So something, I think that's about as far as I can hint into it, but rest assured there's been plenty of attention being paid to where we might be heading with continued age stated releases.
Love it. Love everything you're doing there. And again, so many things coming up. Hopefully some of y'all watching, listening to us on our podcast as well. We'll be going to Cask Thief this weekend. If not, look for it in the future. Be watching for Mountain Angel, everything else coming that we've been talking about. And of course, if you're able to get towards Denver, if you have a friend that can get towards Denver, go by the distillery, get a bottle of this. This is such an exciting release. It takes us in so many places that I've never been before with Stranahan's. You were mentioning, have you made any cocktails out of this? I mean, it's beautiful by itself, but have you tried anything with this yourself?
I think they might have. I think they usually try to have one in our lounge that might use that. I couldn't tell you currently if there's one using it right now. I mean, honestly, the bottles are so limited that we're
I understand
having trouble keeping up with it. But again, like our we have a fantastic cocktail program. They do good. Really good work, and it's kind of a blessing and a curse that they're only able to make cocktails with our whiskey. Right. But we have all the whiskey classics year round, and then we launch an amazing seasonal menu every season, obviously. And half those you wouldn't even know there's whiskey in. So we try to use the Blue Peak or lighter, fruitier releases to kind of hit these profiles. And our bartenders and mixologists are just fantastic.
It's always been so much fun to see the new cocktails that are done there, classics.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a favorite cocktail ever with your Stranahan's?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a simple guy. I mostly drink whiskey neat, if you can imagine. But they did a diamonds on the inside they used to do with the black label, and it was kind of a riff on an old fashioned, but with more grapefruit. A little pithier, I guess. And I'm a guy who I like as much citrus as I can get in a lot of my cocktails. So I thought that one was really good balance of the caramels of the whiskey with the brighter tartness of the grapefruit.
Nice. Well, excellent stuff, man. You're doing great work, and look forward to hopefully seeing you in Denver soon. And congrats on this release. And make sure, again, everybody, watch out for this and so many others coming up from Stranahan's. Make sure you take a chance and Like this, share this, take a moment, like this, share this, and subscribe to our channel. And this will indeed be up later on our podcast channels as well, on audio and video permanently. Cheers, Owen. Good to see you, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Tom. I can't wait to get you here. We'll do a walk through the rack house of a lot of other things to show you.
Looking forward to it, my friend. Thanks so much. Cheers. And hope Cask